Welcome to this special presentation. I'm Shubhendu Ghosh. Now we know that the world of online, the world of internet comes with its own share of freedom and risks. But with this pandemic, our dependence on the online world has increased manifold. And with that has also increased the risk associated with this digital environment. And talking about risk, the most vulnerable among us are the youngsters and children. Did you know that children across the world globally make 1/3 of the online users? And sadly, online abuse, online bullying, online exploitation, these take place in the privacy of one's computer, the computer of the youngster or the child, so much so that United Nations recognizes it as a global problem with every country, every youngster is vulnerable to. Today, we will deliberate on this challenge, and we have a special guest who is joining us, a young activist, Aditya Sharma. Aditya is a high school student. He's studying in Bangkok. He's been closely associated with initiatives to make internet, the online world, safer for children and youngsters. He's been a youth representative on many global platforms as well, such as Consultation on Child Online Protection Initiative by a UN agency. Let's begin this discussion. Welcome, Aditya, to this special interaction. What's going on? Are schools on? Summer vacations on? What's on these days?
Good afternoon, sir. So yes, it's summer vacations for us, although we've been out of school since March because of COVID.
Okay. Now, Aditya, at a young age like yours, when many youngsters would want to explore the infinite potential of internet, what made you interested in taking that critical glance at the risks and challenges that come with the online world to children and youngsters in particular?
I mean, I've been on the internet since I was very young. As of many people my age, the internet has been with me for as long as I can remember, which of course is not the case for people of the slightly older generation. But what really got my interest into this was when I realized that because I write quite a bit online, and what really sparked my interest into this field was when on a question and answer website where I write, I started to receive threats on occasion. That's when I realized just how in danger I was and how exposed and vulnerable I could be. That's how it all started for me.
Aditya, if we talk about the central issue of child protection online, if you could simplify for us, what are the kind of risks we are talking about? What are the manner in which they manifest, especially for youngsters and children?
Absolutely. So we have several different risks that children face online. So we begin with, first of all, peer-to-peer, like this is something that happens with children themselves. Cyberbullying. Yes. This is something that happens normally between peers. They know each other in real life, but when the bullying happens, then often they take it online. Now, another type of risk they face is online harassment, either from people they know or they don't know. Then we move on to child sexual harassment, which is much more serious, and then child sexual exploitation. We see things like child pornography as well. These are now very, very serious crimes. There's also things like on the internet when people post, there's trolling, there's harassment under their posts, and then there's just when children are meant to feel unsafe on the internet. Those are the general things that we talk about when we think about the dangers that children face online.
Right. Now, Aditya, from your own personal experience, you just shared that you've been online for as long as you can remember. From your own personal experience or your loved ones, your friends, have you noted any such risk firsthand? How did you or your friend cope with it?
So I'll just speak about my own experience personally. I write quite a lot online. I think I mentioned that before. And one time, I think around 2 years back, I received violent threats against threatening bodily harm to me. And that was the eye-opening experience for me. Like how I handled it, at that point, I didn't really know what to do. I spoke to my parents. They basically spoke to some other people. We handled the whole thing, and it turned out that it was just a person just sending threats to basically everyone they could send it to. But I recognized at that point that, okay, too much information of me online.
Right. And being a youth representative on global platforms such as United Nations, Children Online Protection, COP initiative, what was your assessment of how does the adult world, the world of grown-ups, how do they assess the challenges faced by children online?
I think they have a good understanding of it, but naturally there are going to be some shortcomings in what
Yeah.
threats actually are and how the people in charge are seeing those threats. The reason is because we are the first generation really that's going to grow up with the internet. All other generations, the internet is something that's come up within their lifetime. So they're adults, they know how to deal with threats, they know how to handle it.
Right.
So they have all their whole life's experience to understand how like they can deal with threats on the internet. With my generation, it's completely different because, okay, I just think about this. Imagine a young child growing up in the world. They need to navigate things like how to cross the street safely, how to be safe with strangers. Now we have the added dimension. We have to grow up, but we have to grow up on the internet as well, and we need to grow up very fast.
Right, and talking about the idea, interesting idea. It is growing up on internet. So, are there interactions that happen between you and youngsters of your age group in your school, in your neighborhood? What kind of discussions come up when you interact with, especially people of your own age group, about exploring and growing up in the world of internet?
I mean, for me, there's always like a lot of talk about how, because we've all seen the internet change and grow ourselves. I remember
Right.
when YouTube was like right its first site. I remember I was 5 years old and oh, YouTube, just this little thing. Now you look at YouTube, it's this massive. It's got so many different platforms. There's at least
Yes.
1 billion people on it. Things like Facebook, which I remember the day when my mother created her account. Now it has 2 billion users and it offers a host of different services on Facebook itself. Like just watching the internet grow up, it's been a very interesting experience. And when we talk like amongst ourselves as young people, we often like think about that. You know, it's grown so much, it's changed so much, and a lot of our experiences now revolve around the internet.
Talking about challenges that one faces online, adults, children, everyone, is a challenge of fake news. Things get viral even before they're verified. How vulnerable do you think youngsters in particular become because of fake news?
Well, this is where it gets very interesting actually, because youngsters are both vulnerable yet at the same time they are empowered. See, the risk with fake news, the reason that this even exists in the first place today is because with the internet, anyone can share anything that can be all over the world in less than a second. Now, this that anyone can share it and it can reach anyone anywhere. What this leads to is everyone becoming exposed to a news that may or may not be true. Sometimes this has good effects because it means that we can learn about things that we wouldn't otherwise know about, issues that we would not know about, issues that would be covered up. But what this also leads to is people who are out there who want to spread news and information that isn't exactly true just for malintent. They might have ulterior motives behind that. I think young people are especially vulnerable to this because young people are always vulnerable to those who make false claims and false promises. On the internet, it's just so much more prevalent. And on the internet, it's
Right.
also much easier to appear legitimate, especially to a younger person who doesn't have sufficient life experience to know what's true and what's not.
Right. Aditya, let's talk a little more about the Child Online Protection Initiative of the United Nations, where you were a youth representative. You put forth the perspective of the young people. Now, this initiative has also formulated certain guidelines, as I understand, for different stakeholders, certain strategies. Tell us a little more about it. How does United Nations perceive this global challenge, and what are the strategies that they've come out with?
Well, we just recently, actually speaking on this matter, we had an international global forum on this. It was organized by the International Telecom Union, ITU, partnering with UNESCO and UNICEF. It was inaugurated by Ms. Doreen Bogdan, the director of the ITU's development wing, and it had present. It was, and Her Majesty Queen Sylvia of Sweden also spoke in that forum about how important it is for the UN to team up to protect children online. And I think they're doing absolutely everything they can. All the organizations that can be involved in this are involved because everyone recognizes that one, children are the future, and two, the internet is also the future, and we need to team up to protect children on the internet.
But are there any key takeaways that you can share with us, Aditya, in this deliberation? What came out? What were the more simple, doable strategies that could be implemented to protect children online?
So before I answer your question fully, I'd just like to cover like the four key stakeholders that ITU mentions in its guidelines. First thing we have is policymakers. In India, we have TRAI, DOT, the government of India. They're the ones who make decisions and policies and regulations that cover all people and all stakeholders. And so there's guidelines for them. There's guidelines for industry members such as Facebook or YouTube, social media sites, and other websites in general where people visit a lot. Third, we have primary caregivers for children, parents, teachers, relatives, educators.
Right.
And fourth, and I think this is the most important thing, is children themselves. There are guidelines specifically for children.
So ways in which children can be more aware and protect themselves online. How does that work? What can youngsters in particular do to help themselves?
So, you know the age-old like advice that our parents always give us, don't take a lollipop from a stranger, something like that. Just take that advice, and because the internet is simply something, it's an extension of real life, and I feel that advice that we get in real life from people that are older than us, it can still apply on the internet. Use common sense, make sure that you're careful on the internet, but I think there's more to it, and I think this is where educators and teachers come in. I think schools and teachers have a responsibility to teach children that there are several key skills, such as how to detect fake news, what to do if you're being bullied online. That I think schools and educators have a responsibility to inform students about those skills and how they can get help.
Right, and the way you say it, Aditya, it seems that just like the real world, in the online world too, when one experiences bullying or any such challenges, then having a supportive, understanding, informed adult, a parent or a teacher, becomes very crucial.
Yes. So here's, however, what I perceive as interesting is that, especially in lesser developed countries, countries that are still developing, but countries where there's a very, very rapid pace of digitalization, like India, perfect example. You have new generation, the youngest generation that's just so into the tech world. They know everything, they know how to do it, they know how to get from here to here, they know how to access information. In fact, sitting here on this laptop, I have access to more information than the smartest person alive 50 years ago. But then you have a generation just older than them, which is our parents. Now, this is a generation that often they don't have the skills and they don't have the knowledge that's required to be able to properly help children. So to teach children how to be safe online, but we also need to equip the parents and the teachers on what to do if their child actually has a problem, because these are completely new skills. And while I said earlier that it's an extension of the real world, it's still completely an extension, that it is so completely different. And we need different skills and new things to be able to understand how to handle them. And I think the key part here is teaching the caregivers, basically, the primary caregivers, teachers, educators, parents, on what to do if their child does have a problem online.
Right. So interesting point there. It seems the grooming required to deal with the online challenges meant for both children, youngsters, and also the caregivers. Those are there at home. You interestingly mentioned, Aditya, that the digital world, the online world, mirrors reality. You know, just as we have in the real world, we can make friends online, we can play games online, we can educate ourselves online. Do you think the kind of precautions that we take in the real world, there are ways in which we let our guards down, especially as youngsters when we are online?
So it's the nature of all young people, just like you feel that you're invincible, nothing can hurt you, and you want to go out there and you want to explore. And that's not just something that's related only to the
because there is a sense that it's online, it's not real, it can't really harm me. So, that sort of a sense prevails. Yeah, go on.
Definitely the fact that it's the internet and there's the fact that you're practically anonymous, that at least that's what some people think, that definitely adds to the sense that I'm invincible on the internet. But I think this is where schools and teachers need to be very careful and very strong in teaching to their children, is that no matter how strong and how anonymous you think you are on the internet, everything you do, anything you search, it will be left
Right.
behind and it will be traced. And I think this is something, this hasn't always been the case. Certainly in the world before the internet, you could do things with relative anonymity, but now that's never going to be the same again. And I think we're going to need to teach our kids from the youngest age that this is reality.
Right, and another form of online, the challenges that youngsters face online is that the sort of online identity that each of us have. Often it is measured in terms of how many likes we get on our photographs or how many people share our posts, So that really makes or breaks the confidence of a young person too. How do children, how do youngsters cope with it? The deliberations that you have participated in, what has come out of it on this particular issue?
I mean, there's definitely something big here for the risks that social media poses to mental health, because social media, if you use it correctly, it's a great place. You can use it to spread information, learn about new things, see where your friends are going, but at the same time, it can also be very dangerous for children because they're learning how to cope with these things and they're only very young. And for a lot of children, social media is becoming a place where their entire sense of self-worth is starting to be defined by the number of likes they get. Now, here's something that I would like to share that I think certain companies have done well. For example, if I open my Instagram feed, it actually doesn't show me, when I scroll through other people's posts, it doesn't tell me how many likes a person has. So I would just call them out here. This is something good that has happened, and I feel it could be replicated.
Okay, and what about engagements online, such as making friends online? It's a common thing, but one is never sure about the real identity of the person that you're befriending. So that particular risk, how can youngsters handle it? How do you handle it? How do your peers handle it, this particular issue? Befriending people online.
I mean, befriending people online is something everyone has to be very, very careful about. Because, of course, it's the fact that anyone can say anything and they can pretend to be whoever they are, and oftentimes they're not. And I think children, once again, it all comes down to the same point. Education and imparting good skills and good instincts right from that young age, teaching them that they need to be careful. It seems like it's a wonderful place, and it is wonderful. But if they're not careful, it can all go very badly. Like, take, for example, you said making online friends. Sounds so good. Oftentimes, young people feel that they don't have a voice at home, and they might turn to the internet for, finding real connections. But this can often be harmful, and there's always people out there who are willing to take advantage of the fact that there's people, someone to talk to.
And Aditya, we're talking about the challenges. Let's also talk about a bit on the positive sides. You just mentioned, you're 16 years old. I believe you're born in a time your generation is born when high-speed internet, smartphones, online video calling as we're doing right now, these had already become rather common, So how intrinsic is internet, online world to your generation, and especially in these times of pandemic, how crucial has it been getting online classes and connections?
I mean, at this point, I think it's becoming clear to everyone that's here that if you're not on the internet, then you're going to be left behind. For example, 90% of students have gone for some sort of shutdown because of COVID-19. And a huge, huge proportion of them, myself included, have shifted their education online. This was something that many people talked about for decades, work from home, learn from home, but it's suddenly happening here right now. And it's actually because my generation has seen the internet go. We've watched it. It's kind of like our brother. I've seen my Wi-Fi speed at home go from 5 kbps to 5 mbps to now 312 mbps.
Right.
So we've seen everything grow and change. At the same time, it's something that we're growing with and changing with as well. And in COVID-19, that growth and change has just accelerated completely because there was always, before the internet and the real world were all connected, and for many students, their real life was still primary, and the internet was, yes, it's another way to connect with friends. But what COVID has done, it has forced us all into our homes, and what it means is that the internet is the single way that we can communicate with our peers and those that are close to us. I think that's a very massive shift in the way the world works at this point.
So, you're based in Bangkok, but you must observe developments in India as well. The kind of digital revolution that is underway in India, from disease control in times of pandemic to ordering food online to ordering groceries online to studying online. There is digitization in almost every sector in the country. What is your assessment of the kind of potential and the challenges that this online revolution brings with it, especially in a country like India?
I mean, India is so incredible to me whenever I think about the internet and India, because I remember when I came here one time when I was 5 years old, just watching TV, it says, get 2G now. And now at this point, it's like we're all talking about 5G. It's watching the internet grow and change. And in India, that change has been incredibly fast. It has hundreds and millions of people online, hundreds of millions of mobile phone subscriptions. And this is happening at a pace that I don't think any other country in the world has been able to match. A country of this size getting online so fast. You go anywhere and everywhere, there's always something you can do with your phone in India. And what I see is a huge, huge potential. Basically every market, every deal, every sale that happens now, that it can happen through the internet. And in a country like India, I think that's something that if we're able to harness properly, then it's going to be very, very hard to stop. It can lead to an immense amount of growth, and we're already seeing that today. But I think at the same time, we need to be careful, and we need to remember that growth is very good, but if you grow too fast, then what happens is you get ahead of yourself. Oftentimes, you find yourself facing new risks, new threats that you're not yet prepared for. And I think that we need to grow and change as we change with the internet as well.
All right, Aditya, let me thank you for joining us for this conversation and sharing those thoughts about the crucial issue of protecting children and youngsters online. Thanks very much, Aditya, for joining us.
Thank you very much.
With that, we conclude this special presentation. Remember to take care of your children, youngsters around you, not just in the real world, but also in the online world as well. Namaskar.